I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Omni Viewer, and welcome to Genre Benders, Obscurities, and Flawed Gems, where we look at the best stuff you've never heard of. Today we're going to discuss something that I've spoken about in the past, because quite frankly I think I can do better. It's time to give a serious listen to BUKIMISHA and explore the fascinating way they reinterpret kaiju music.
If you're a Godzilla fan, you're probably also a fan of Godzilla soundtracks. Music has been an essential part of the series from the very beginning, and it's as versatile as the genre itself.
You just can't separate music from the Godzilla series no matter what you do. In fact, music is so important that its absence can completely change the tone of a film.
Consider how there's no music throughout the final battle in Godzilla vs. Hedorah until the smog monster is beaten. Without music, the environment where the kaiju fight occurs feels devoid of life. That was a deliberate creative choice.
Sometimes the music can even be the saving grace of certain movies.
Even people who don't like the 1998 TriStar Godzilla will cut David Arnold a break for his bombastic compositions. Toho certainly did when they included his score as part of a definitive CD box set.
The top name in Godzilla music, however, is the man who was there from the beginning. The late, great Akira Ifukube.
He not only composed the most iconic tunes of the whole series, but he also used instruments to generate Godzilla's iconic sound effects in the first film, specifically the roar and footsteps. And every time he returned to the series, it was considered a very big deal.
Okay, so we've established that music is important to the series. Where does BUKIMISHA come into play? And what even is BUKIMISHA?
I was just getting to that. BUKIMISHA is a self-professed weird secret society based out of Japan, the members of which are all anonymous.
The only photos out there are of their great mentor Dr. Bukimi, who has a face only a mother could love. Or maybe that's a mask. It's hard to tell in my line of work. At any rate, he's the only one ever photographed.
Unlike other secret societies like the Illuminati or the lizard people who control our world governments, BUKIMISHA is a male chorus that sings for the enjoyment of others. What they sing, however, are vocal reinterpretations of music from science fiction movies, with a particular focus on kaiju and tokusatsu.
BUKIMISHA has been around in Japan for a while, but they are just beginning to branch out and release their music abroad. At this point, they have 2 albums available in America, Godzilla vs. Rodan and Godzilla and Friends vs. Ghidorah, respectively.
I did an unscripted reaction to the first album not long after my copy arrived in the mail, but I always felt a little disappointed with it because it was very rough and I knew there was more I could say.
Well, you may have been disappointed, but the band sure wasn't.
Yeah, much to my surprise, that original video was actually noticed by the band, as well as the American producers who imported the album.
Despite how rough that first video was, it went over well with everyone who saw it, including, as mentioned, the original band members and producers. As a result, I was not only sent an advance copy of the second album by David Hirsch, but I have also been granted permission to play samples of their music for this video without it affecting my channel.
So I must extend my gratitude to everyone for that. This is an opportunity I shall neither waste nor abuse, as it will help demonstrate what makes BUKIMISHA really stand out. For starters, let's clarify what sort of content is contained within.
Upon their initial release in Japan, these 2 albums were actually 4 albums, but they were compiled into 2 for American distribution. The first entry, Godzilla vs. Rodan, contains vocal recreations of the 1954 score for Godzilla and the 1956 score for Rodan. Meanwhile, Godzilla and Friends vs. Ghidorah recreates the 1964 score for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and the 1965 score for Invasion of Astro Monster, aka Godzilla vs. Monster Zero.
Including the bonus track on the second album, that's 97 songs very densely packed onto these 2 discs.
Just out of curiosity, why go the compilation route if they were initially 4 albums?
According to the liner notes, it's because of how the original Japanese releases were formatted.
The Japanese releases were known to have bonus tracks containing dialogue, recreations of trailer audio, and gaps of silence that could last up to 20 minutes just to mess with the listeners.
Now, true, that quirkiness is part of the group's identity, but for an American release, dialogue tracks just weren't going to translate, and these silent tracks were deemed expendable.
So, with those elements removed, and since most of the tracks are less than 2 minutes apiece, they had a lot of extra room for each disc.
That's about the size of it. I do kinda wish they kept the trailer audio like other soundtracks have done, but then again, I'm saying that as a superfan. Anyway, what remains on these CDs are still complete soundtracks, even more complete than other releases.
Most versions of the original Godzilla soundtrack include the Ikomaru's ship music as we hear it in the movie, reaching a certain point before it gets cut off by the music that underscores the boat's tragic fate.
For the BUKIMISHA album, the complete rendition of that ditty is presented for us to enjoy. Furthermore, BUKIMISHA has the distinction of debuting a track which was cut from the original film and has never appeared on any previous soundtrack release.
That track is Cemetery, a tune that, as far as anyone can tell, would have been featured somewhere on Odo Island so we could dwell a bit more on the human toll of Godzilla's late-night attack.
As you can tell, it's a very somber piece that sits well alongside the music that underscores the devastation of Tokyo. In all likelihood, the scene and the music were probably cut from the final film to improve the flow.
It's too bad, really. That scene would have given the story a nice sense of symmetry.
Agreed, but we can be thankful that BUKIMISHA included it here. Truth be told, I hadn't even heard of this deleted scene before listening to the BUKIMISHA album. So, these guys have actually helped to expand my horizons as a fan.
In order to recreate these themes, as you've heard, most of the singing is comprised of las and das and other non-words people use when imitating instrumental music with their mouths. However, the group is able to have fun with the music by incorporating the kaiju's names when appropriate.
This is especially noticeable on the Ghidorah score, as you'll notice here. If any of you thought that Bear McCreary's score for King of the Monsters had too much chanting in it, I'll bet that just made your head explode.
Hey, why didn't Rodan get a name drop? Whose soup did he pee in?
Good questions, and while I don't have the definitive answers, I do have some theories.
On the Ghidorah album, Rodan's classic theme doesn't actually appear. Instead, Ifukube retooled Varen's theme for some reason. Not using his name there might be in reference to that.
As for why it's not used in the actual Rodan score, it could be due to how short Rodan's name is.
Whether you go with Rodan or the original Radon, you only have 2 syllables to work with, as opposed to the 3 that come with Gojira and Mosura, or the maximum 5 you can milk from King Ghidorah.
Ergo, since Radon is so short, they couldn't find a way to work it in, so they just didn't bother. That's my guess anyway. I could be wrong. Now, I'm sure many of you are wondering how these guys can recreate some of Ifukube's compositions using only their voices.
Some tracks include sound effects, and others include notes well outside the average human's vocal range. Some don't even sound like music, but just cacophonous noise.
Right now, you're probably thinking, Omni, how can these singers possibly recreate those songs?
Omni, how can these singers possibly recreate these songs?
Thank you. Well, the only way to find out is to listen for ourselves. Sound effects like earthquakes and footsteps are easy because they're just recreated the old-fashioned way, with a good combination of air and spit. As for replicating the roars, a different approach is taken.
Rather than attempt exact recreations, which would be difficult for anyone to do, they instead make sounds reminiscent of the classic roars.
The result is something that doesn't quite sound like it does in the movies, but it's still reminiscent of those sounds and it's consistent with the rest of what we hear. In fact, realizing the music in this way can totally change the mood of certain pieces. Consider the music used for Planet X in the Astro Monster section. Akira Ifukube's original instrumental compositions are brilliant, of course, but listen to how BUKIMISHA reinterprets them. Haunting, isn't it?
The translation to vocals has a ghostly quality to it that lends itself well to Planet X's barren landscape. Here you can really tell that this is a dying world as opposed to a thriving one.
Something similar occurs with the Oxygen Destroyer theme. The original piece is a choir of shrieking violins punctuated by the banging of a piano's bass notes. If any song in the world sounds like death, that would be it. But here's how BUKIMISHA reinterprets it. This a cappella rendition has more of a human element to it, as if people are dying, which makes it eerie in a totally different way.
And what are we in for now?
What's that supposed to mean, Snazzy?
Whenever we near the end of videos like this one, you wind up getting extra introspective about the subject you're reviewing. It happens more often than not.
Am I really so predictable?
If you were more popular, your picture would be next to the word predictable in every dictionary. So, since we're just about at that point, what have you got for us this time?
Well, maybe I don't have anything. Did you ever think of that?
Come on, Omni, of course you have something.
Yeah, I do. And it's going in a direction I don't think anyone could predict. The one question we have yet to answer in this whole video is why. As in, why reinterpret the music in this way? Sure, it saves money on instruments, but you still need to have musical talent for it. Besides, there's got to be a deeper reason. And I think I know what it could be.
The albums describe BUKIMISHA as the spiritual voices of Akira Ifukube, and the key word there is spiritual. The context could just mean spiritual successor, but I think it means something more. When I first heard what the group sounds like, I thought something about it sounded familiar, and I don't mean because I'd heard the music before watching the movies. It was the kind of music that had my gears turning, and it didn't take me long to remember.
It reminded me of Gregorian chanting. Once I made that mental connection, everything about these albums made sense.
Singing always seems to carry a level of spirituality with it. All over the world, the various religions of various cultures use singing to connect with divinity. And why not? Singing is a very personal way of making music, since it literally comes from within.
Even the non-religious can recognize the ethereal quality of singing done in a religious context, be it in reverence of Jesus Christ in a cathedral or the Buddha in a temple.
This is potentially going in a weird direction, Omni.
Don't worry, I'm about to reel it in. Obviously, I'm not suggesting that either Godzilla or Akira Ifukube should be viewed as religious figures. At the same time, though, I can recognize that we as fans do hold them to a certain degree of reverence, just in a different way than the religious kind.
We call ourselves Godzilla fans because those movies speak to us on a level that other movies don't, whether that results in extracting meaning or just having fun.
Of course, part of what makes the movies so good is the music, especially that of Akira Ifukube, as mentioned many times throughout this video.
His melodies and themes are so iconic that they remain staples of the series even after so many decades have passed.
He deserves to be counted among the greatest of film composers, possibly among the greatest of musical talents, period.
Many fans are content to simply enjoy the Godzilla series in the traditional way of watching, reading, and listening, and that's the primary way it's sustained, so I don't want to diminish that.
There are those of us, however, who choose to express our enjoyment in a more proactive way by making content of our own. Some of us draw pictures, some of us build models, and some of us film long-winded, pretentious videos to post on YouTube.
The members of BUKIMISHA choose to sing, putting their own unique spin on these familiar tunes. Given my previous description of how singing is used in praise, I would say that by vocally recreating these works, they're paying the great composer quite a compliment.
Without getting weird or blasphemous, of course.
Of course. In short, we all find a way of participating in this fandom, and the members of BUKIMISHA have found a wonderful way that's all their own.
Now, BUKIMISHA has over 100 albums available in Japan, not all of them Godzilla related, so you can bet that more international releases are planned for the future.
I don't know which ones are coming next, but whatever they are, I am definitely looking forward to them. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. You know, I've got some projects of my own coming up that'll require music one day. Who knows what the future may hold?
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.